Thursdays. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's day 4 of Webinar Day with A-Crew, and look who I've got with me again, the lovely Lynn and Julia. Thank you so much for joining us again. I thoroughly enjoyed last Tuesday, and so I was really looking forward to today. How are you at the moment? All good?
Good. Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
So let me see in the chat. Then you've just posted, like, obviously everybody welcome and thank you again for joining us. I'm not gonna ask the obvious question today, where you're from, because I think I've done that like 9 times this week. So that's becoming a bit of a stupid one. I haven't come up with anything new, but I can tell you that, like, as traditions is, we have a song again at the end. Julia has said it's a tradition with the Luxury Hospitality webinar that we have a video and a song at the end. But for now, for the people that are joining for the first time, I would love to introduce who I'm with today. And I'm here with Julia and Lynn. Julia is head of Insight of Luxury Hospitality, and Lynn is the Insight Specialist Trainer. And today we've got an amazing topic. I'm going skipping over this, the learning zones. We've changed the title a little bit. And what's the new title again, Julia? Because you came up with this great title.
Yeah, Emotional Intelligence and Your Journey Through the Zones in the Current Climate.
Which is a much better title than the learning zones. But still, you are all here. I am delighted. And with much further ado, I'm going to give over to the two of you. Have a great session. And thank you again very much for doing this. People in the chats, keep sending in the questions. This is one that we want to be interactive. So anything you have, anything you want to say, just put it in there. I'll keep an eye out and make sure that I ask the questions to Julia and Lynn so that they can engage with you as they do so well. Megan, hi from Dubai, and Finland is back again. Still in Croatia. I don't even have to ask the question, but we're there. And Dubai, I think that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Go ahead, ladies, please take it away.
Great. Thank you, Onno. Thank you so much for having us back. It's really great that we're being able to join in this week. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. You will need a pen and paper again, so please grab a pen and paper, because we do like to make these sessions interactive so that you can take the most out of it and hopefully learn something and grow with it, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about growth and learning within these particular zones. I don't know if you were on the Talent Dynamics webinar that we did on Tuesday. So this is a follow-on to that. With a part of it is the training that we do within our Insight Day. And it's going to be about emotional intelligence, traveling through this journey that we're going through these particular zones. And I'll cover those in a minute. If you didn't see that webinar and you'd like to see it, it can be found on our LH page, which is on the A-Crew webinar. So you can find it on there. But so what we're going to do is give you a brief overview of these self-recognizing zones so that you can really think about your feeling about where you are at the moment. And we're going to ask you which one you really relate to at the moment. So get your pen and paper ready. So I'm just going to share this slide if I can. You know that I'm not very good with, oh, there we go, we found it. So here are the learning zones. So if I can just briefly go through what these are. This was created a few weeks ago, so that's why there is a word in there that we don't want to mention anymore. It's just the current situation. So the fear zone is those feelings of uncertainty that we've all been feeling. They are the engulfing, the negative things that are coming on social media and in the news sensationalization. That's very demotivating, it's very depressing, and that's all looking backwards. All of that is looking backwards into those fear emotions that we don't really want to feel. Then we go into the learning zone, and the learning zone is having that greater awareness, letting things go that you can't do anything about. So you're starting to have that awareness of that and identifying emotions that you're feeling. And so you're starting to look at opportunities. So that's looking forward. And then the final one is the growth zone, which is where you're really starting to look forward and you're finding purpose and discovering that we can emerge from this with a situation, this current situation, feeling a stronger and better version of ourselves. So those are the 3 zones that we're looking for. And you may relate to some of those, or you may be able to come up with some of your own. But it's just really getting to that feeling zone of how you are feeling in this moment. It's just going to go back to us now. There we go, done it. Not very good with technical stuff. So this exercise, if you can just really interact within the chat, this exercise is a feeling stimulus. So you can ascertain which one of those zones that you think you are currently sitting in, which one you're really feeling at the moment. So using your gut instinct, which is the one that you feel that you're in at the most. So in the chat zone, if you can put from 1 to 10, think about, okay, 1 to 10, what it is in the fear zone that you're feeling with your gut instinct, what it is in the learning zone that you're feeling at the moment, your gut instinct, and what it is in the growth zone. So 1 to 10, I'll give you 30 seconds to do this, and I'll put my stopwatch on so you can really feel it. So now in the chat zone, please do contribute. Where are you, 1 to 10, in those zones?
Yeah, so there's always a bit of delay with them, Julia, because they see us a bit later, so they need about 10 seconds longer than we think.
Okay. So please give us some feedback on where you feel you are in those zones. Are you feeling 1 to 10 fear? Are you feeling 3 or 5 or 8? Are you feeling in that you're starting to learn and come to terms with things and looking to grow in that learning zone? So are you 2, 5, 8 or 10? Or are you in the growth zone where you're really starting to look at your purpose and really starting to understand that you can see your way forward? So you're really looking forward. So we've got the growth zone 10, fantastic.
Wonderful.
Who else can give us some feedback on where you're feeling? Be honest, really go with your gut feeling. Because a few weeks ago when this was created, I think a lot of us were feeling huge uncertainty, and that's in that fear zone. So we were really feeling in that. We are starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel now. So we are starting to see some progress, and we're starting to see where we can go. So we've got one between learning and growth, okay?
Yes, Giovanni, there can be 2 or 3. You might go between them.
Just give us some figures that you can look at and think, okay, I'm 3 in that one, I'm 4 in that one, and I'm 8 in that one, or whatever numbers that you feel that you are. 8 learning and 3 growth, fantastic. 1, 8, and 9, very good. That's fantastic, Tom. Thank you, because you've actually been vulnerable enough to tell us that you've got a bit of fear in there as well, which we all have. I certainly have. I don't like uncertainty, and as humans, we don't like uncertainty. So there is a bit of fear in there. Okay, so I think we've got enough to go on to, if you can actually write those figures or write some ideas down on your sheet of paper as well, because you can start to recognize where you are now, and in 3 to 6 months' time, with this learning of emotional intelligence, you can raise that so you can actually move further and further into the growth zone. So Giovanni, personally, 9 learning zone, professionally 8 growth. Fantastic. Fear zone 2. Thank you, Velima. That's really good to actually be able to say, okay, yes, I get that. I am feeling a little bit of this. Okay. Have you got anything to, have you been collating them, Lynn?
Yes. I'm just going to do that last one, 7, 2, and 1. Well, this is all very encouraging because we can see that there are a very low number of responses of people who are in the fear zone. I think had we run this poll, asked you this question 2 or 3 weeks ago, we would have had a lot more of you in the fear zone, but it is lovely to see that most of us are coming out of this. The highest number, of course, are people in the learning zone, and then into the growth zone. So number 1, learning zone, most number of people, growth zone the next, and the fear zone are the least number of people. That's very encouraging. What it also shows us is that this is a transient kind of time. Some of the things that are not allowing you to be completely into the growth zone is probably the uncertainty that's around at the moment. But many of you are scoring high in growth, and quite a few of you low in the growth zone. Fabulous. It's fabulous to know that you have room to grow. You can look forward to that and coming out of this. So excellent. Yes, yeah. That's where we are.
So thank you for that participation. We want to help you to spend less time in that fear zone. So we still have some people in there. And as I said, I've definitely still got some fear zone because of that uncertainty bit. And we want to really get through into that learning zone and into the growth zone. Because when you're in that growth zone all the time, you will have great clarity on your purpose. You'll be able to utilize your unique skills and to achieve your goals and be more adaptable to change, because we know that there's still going to be more change. And we need to be adaptable. This is something that we talked about on Tuesday within the talent dynamics. Is all about change and being able to control that within our own emotions. So the more emotionally intelligent we become, we'll be able to control that change much more within us. And so we can get out of that. We can be more connected to people. Our relationships can get better and better. And what you do starts with you. So as long as you're working on yourself, things will always get better. So looking and growing is where we want to get us. And then perhaps at the end of this webinar, when you know more about how to empower yourselves through becoming more emotionally intelligent, you will be able to stay more and more in that growth zone and really see how emotional intelligence can be used to the most effectively in leadership. But this is very tiny bit of what we can cover on 45 minutes. The rest of it we show in our courses. But Lynn's going to give you a very, very brief synopsis of how we can start to look at emotional intelligence and how we can become much more empowered to move forward out of this current situation and into a much stronger, better version of ourselves. So I'm just going to try and show another slide because as I said, I'm not fantastic at this.
Luckily, we only have two. So once you've done this one, you're off the hook.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so here we have emotional intelligence. So our aim in this webinar is to give you an awareness, kind of an overview. As Julia said, we can't go into the deep levels of emotional intelligence in 45 minutes, but we want to give you an overview of what it is so that you can relate to the principles of the subject matter, so that when you attend our training sessions, you can really explore these areas much more fully to increase your knowledge. So how does Wikipedia, for example, describe emotional intelligence? It describes it in three ways. The first way, it says, it is the ability to perceive one's own and others' emotions. The ability to perceive one's own and others' emotions. So let's define emotions very quickly, because I'm sure that if I asked a lot of people, what's the difference between an emotion and a feeling, or a thought, an emotion and a feeling, you might not be able to define them very clearly. So let's do that. Our emotions are the physical reactions which comes from an outside influence. So it's something you've watched on television. It's something you've seen happen. It's something you've seen on social media. Or it's a reaction to an internal stimulus. It's a memory you have. So when you're seeing something, either internally or externally, this is creating an emotion inside you. Why is it a physical reaction? Because the body reacts in a physical way to the emotions that you're experiencing. You know this. You know that your body feels different when you're happy to when you're sad. Your body feels heavy when you have negative emotions. It feels lighter when you have positive emotions. This is a huge and fascinating subject. I absolutely love it. And we go much deeper into this, obviously, when we're doing our full training programs. So in short, the thoughts you have around what you see or what you remember create emotions. Those emotions create feelings, and those feelings drive your behavior. This is important to know. Okay, Wikipedia then says that emotional intelligence is the ability to discriminate between different emotions and to label them appropriate. How can you give these emotions that you're feeling an appropriate label? So we have hundreds of emotions. Our 10 principal ones are joy, that's the highest emotion, joy, excitement, surprise, sadness, anger, disgust, contempt, and fear. We've all experienced all of those. Fear, when you're in the fear zone, fear is very disempowering. It's where you feel you're at the mercy of what's going on and that you have no power to change it. Anger, fear, contempt, all of these words that you saw in the chart at the beginning, these are all emotions you'll be feeling when you're in the fear zone. They're very disempowering. You need to be able to manage your emotions and therefore your thoughts, because your thoughts create your emotions, and help yourself move through the emotional scale. When you're in the learning zone, you're beginning to identify your emotions. You're feeling more acceptance. Now, this feeling of acceptance isn't, oh, whatever. It's not that, because, oh, whatever is all about feeling contemptuous about the situation, having some resistance to it. Those are negative feelings. Your feelings of acceptance are, I accept this situation and I'm going to make the best of it. This is a very powerful emotion. You're pushing against the current. And this emotion leaves room for change. When you get into the growth zone, your emotions are mostly going to be happiness, gratitude, hopefulness, and empathy. So one thing to note is that you really can't feel two emotions at the same time. So a very quick way of getting yourself out of the fear and the learning zone is to give gratitude. And there are many, many things you can give gratitude for in all of your lives. Whether you still have your job or not, you still have a lot of things to be grateful for. Whether you're stuck on the boat or at home, you still have a lot of things to be grateful for. When you do that as a practice, think of three things. As you wake up in the morning, think of 3 things to be grateful for. Or when you go to sleep, 3 things to be grateful for. It's so easy. You've got running hot water, you've got food, and you've got clothes to wear. That's a lot more than much of the world has. And then, of course, you can be grateful for your family, your friends, all of this sort of stuff. So when you're feeling gratitude, you can't then be feeling disappointment or fear or sadness or contempt or anything else. So it's a very quick, easy way to change your emotions and move yourself up through the emotional scale. Because you can't, as humans, we can't just go, right, I'm going to feel happy. You can create that happiness by doing the things that make you feel good, watching funny movies, all of that sort of stuff. Then you move up the emotional scale. But very quickly, if you give gratitude, you can do that. So the third way that Wikipedia describes emotional intelligence is the ability to use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior. How do you do that? How do you use this emotional information to guide your behavior? You get in tune with yourself. You recognize how you're feeling and what effect it's having on you and the people around you. On Tuesday's webinar, we talked about the human energy field. So this is a field that vibrates at certain levels according to the emotions that you're feeling. It's a direct relation to your emotions. So when you feel it, other people are feeling it too. And they will be affected by it. You know this. You know when you work with somebody and they're in a bad mood, you pick it up whether you want to or not. You'll pick up negative emotions, you'll pick up positive emotions. So how do you manage it? You notice the stimuli that are causing your emotions to rise or to fall. And do more of the things that are causing you to feel happy. Be around happy people, talk to your family and friends, watch funny YouTube clips, and do much less of the things, avoid the stimuli that are making your emotional levels drop. So don't watch the news. I'm perfectly sure that you feel your energy levels drop when you've watched the newscast of the current situation. So avoid doing that. Keep yourself informed, but don't watch wall-to-wall newscasts. Avoid being around negative people. Those are ways that you manage your own emotions. So when you've developed the skill of becoming aware of your own emotional states and how to manage them, you can much more easily identify those emotions in other people. And this is exactly what emotional intelligence is all about. And it's a fabulous tool that will drive your leadership program, your performance of leadership, not just your self-leadership, but the way in which you can lead teams. So Julio, another large part of emotional intelligence is empathy, as we see on the slide there. Do you want to say something about empathy?
Yes, I was just going to just go round the slide, actually, because what you've been talking about there is all about self-awareness. And that's part of what we were talking about on Tuesdays, is really getting to understand who you are and how you behave and function and feel and communicate, and also how others do. And the more emotionally intelligent you are, the more self-aware you are, the more you can really start to have better communications and connections with people. I'm very sorry, it's just gone incredibly dark here because it's about to pour with rain. So I think I'm disappearing into the darkness. It also gives you much better social skills because you become more proactive rather than reactive. So that's your self-regulation. You can control your emotions and really start to, if something happens in front of you, rather than go off into the archives of your memory that brings you back an emotion and a feeling and a reaction that you would normally have, you can press the pause button and have that self-regulation of then thinking, okay, I won't react like that. I press the pause button. I'm going to look at this situation as it's happening in front of me right now. It's got nothing to do with my past. And so your self-regulation and your control of your emotions becomes much more valid in the moment to what you are seeing and who you're communicating with. When you have all of that, you're going to have much more motivation as well, because you're not using all your energy being emotive, in the wrong way. You are going to have your emotions working in a way for you rather than against you. And that's a very, very powerful, very empowering thing, to be able to be in control of your emotions. But the last one there is empathy. And it is always very typically associated with emotional intelligence. It's a very powerful skill to become empathetic. And it means the ability to feel into an emotion rather than just feel with it. Now, how can I describe that? You're walking along the street and there's a great big hole in front of you, and you can hear somebody in the hole shouting help. So somebody with a sympathetic approach would walk up to the hole and they would say to the person, are you okay? And they would say whatever happened to get them in the hole. And they would say, oh, you poor thing. And they'd really feel with them. They'd feel with them these emotions. And they'd say, oh, can I do anything? But it's at arm's length. Sympathy is an arm's length emotion. Whereas somebody with an empathetic approach would walk up to the hole, see the person in the hole, and they'd get down in the hole with them. And then they would find out and feel what the emotions are that person's feeling, but their intelligence of that situation would kick in, and they'd find a way to help this person out of the hole. So it's literally getting into the shoes of the other person, feeling it, but not letting you be dragged into their emotions, but be intelligent enough to think, okay, how are we going to move forward with this? So it's always moving forward. So having an empathetic approach is a great leadership skill. Who would you prefer to follow? Somebody with a sympathetic approach or somebody with an empathetic approach? I know what I'd rather follow. I'd much rather follow somebody with an empathetic approach. So it's an incredibly useful skill in all environments to really become more emotionally intelligent within the empathetic role, so the empathetic communication. So that is a very useful tool. But emotional intelligence, this is just a touch on it, of how it can really, really assist you throughout your life for you to become happier and more productive and really move into that growth zone, so you can come out of any situation, particularly this situation, feeling really empowered and a better version. We can all grow now and become better versions of ourselves. So what we'd like to do is just have you think a little bit more again now, based on what we've just talked about. Is there now a little bit of a change for you to be able to think, okay, if I use this, I can maybe move 1 degree out of the fear zone, or 1 degree more into the learning zone, or 1 degree more into the growth zone. So can we just would you give us a little bit of feedback on, if you think about this and feel where you are now, where would you be? Could you move a little bit? Can we just have some interaction from you and see if you can feel that you've moved a little bit? And I'll come back out of this so that we can relate. Come back onto attendees. Where's the chat gone? Yeah.
I think in the meantime, while people are giving you feedback, it might be nice to, Megan's got a good question there.
Yes.
So how does one develop empathy? I feel I'm quite good at being sympathetic, but maybe often too impatient to be empathetic.
So that's a very good question. So if being sympathetic means that you're sympathetic at arm's length, so you feel that, and you can say, oh, I'm really sorry you feel like that, but you're not actually helping them. So if you want to become more empathetic, it's really developing your listening skills and finding out what is that other person feeling. So your listening skills are, you don't only listen with these, you listen with these. So what we know, as I mentioned on Tuesday, is that 55% of body language is what communication is. So this is really important, and these are really important. So listening, honing in your listening skills and listening to what the person or the situation is telling you. So it could be the body language of a person. It could be what they're saying. It could be their tone of voice. So 7% is actual spoken word. 38% is the tone. So listening, honing your listening skills so that you can really start to be intelligent about listening and communication. Once you have that, you can then, once you've listened, you can really start to hear what is their emotion. You can get in that hole with them. You can feel it, but you won't get embroiled in it. And then you can use your intelligence to really assist. So you take all perception out of it. You just really look at the moment and look at what's happening right now to assist that person to move out of the situation they're in. And you can you've got to look at what your triggers are, what triggers you, learn what triggers other people, and press that pause button and become more proactive rather than reactive. Lynne,
yeah. Well, I just wanted to add that the important thing to remember in empathy is that, and in communication, but in empathy we're talking about, is that you're hearing it from the other person's point of view. You are not saying, this is how I would react or how I would feel in this situation, because your life's experience, your conditioning, your upbringing is different from somebody else's. And so you have to get out of the me and go into them. That's what empathy is. How is this situation affecting them? What actions can I take to help them from their perspective? It is not to do with your perspective. It is to do with them. That's an important thing to remember.
Do you see Caroline's reaction? Because I think this relates really nicely to what you just said, Lynne.
Caroline, the difficulty often arises when you are dealing with other crew members, often superiors, who are closed off to doing their job responsibly. Yep. For all that, much of our job and getting things achieved on our department depends on our own energy, motivation, inspiration. I find it frustrating to try to persuade people that things need to be tackled. It's often about managing that other person. But if their priorities are different from yours, you often end up against a brick wall and frustrated, even when you have been polite, respectful, submissive, etc. Right. These are, I'll say my part and Julia will chime in. When you're dealing with other people, even if you feel you being polite, respectful, submissive, if you're a head of department, you don't want to be submissive. You really want to find that kind of middle zone with them. And remember, you're being polite, respectful, submissive, etc. from your perspective. I'll tell you a little story. Happened to me the other day. I have my two very strong, very capable 20-plus-year-old sons here at the moment. And I said to one of them, who's spending quite a lot of time in his bedroom, in bed, watching movies, Nicholas, I said to him when he arrived, would you mind replacing the mirror on my car? Because I had the mirror broken and I'd got a replacement one. I've had it for about 2 months. And I wanted him, since he was around, if he would do that for me. I'll tell you why, because I've got a broken leg and it's difficult for me to get up and down stairs. I asked him to do it when he first arrived. Then I asked him to do it again a couple of days ago. And his response was, do it yourself. I thought I'd asked him very nicely. Maybe I got a bit frustrated. I felt I'd asked him nicely because I said, when you're down there, Nick, would you just put this mirror on my car? He said to me, do it yourself. So you had to, and we discussed it, and I said, did you not like the way I asked you how to do that? And he said, no, I thought you were just being condescending about it. So maybe I was, but not at the time from my perspective. So if you're not getting the reaction that you want to get, try to look at it from the other person's point of view. They are always going to accept instructions, accept communication in different ways. Please do listen, Caroline. I can't remember if you were on our call on Tuesday. If you weren't on the call on Tuesday, please listen in to the Talent Dynamics webinar. It tells you all about this. It tells you all about talking to people in a way they want to hear the information. And that will be dependent on what kind of energy they have, what kind of character they have. Yes, it's very difficult when you're dealing with crew members, even more difficult when you're dealing with superiors who are closed off to this. They are not very emotionally intelligent. Many people who are in the superior positions in the super yacht world are not very emotionally intelligent because they're very ego-driven. So it's wonderful if you get an emotionally intelligent captain. If you don't, you really do have to be your own best example. Lead your team, and if you're not a team leader, lead yourself. That will go into the behaviors of other people around you with the highest level of emotional intelligence. Julia, do you want to add something to Caroline's question?
Yes, I was just going to say it goes back to body language and listening and people and speaking somebody else's language. To get what you want somebody to understand, you have to, the most effective way is to watch them and learn, and this is where Talent Dynamics really does help, but you can do it just by watching and listening and talking to somebody the way they want to be, the way they want to receive information. So if you are a very out there dynamic person, which we call blaze energy, you can be quite chatty and sometimes be referred to as a bit full on, and we may go straight ahead to sort of ask somebody to do something, or particularly to an HOD, you would ask something in a particular way, and they might take it the wrong way because they don't want to hear it the way you're saying it. So learning what characteristics they have, learning whether they're slightly introverted, whether they're extroverted, whether they're very creative, or whether they like everything detail orientated. Learn what people want around you. All of your team, if you can learn what they want, to how they want to receive information, how they want to be given written instructions or visual instructions, or how you want them as well, how you can receive this information, really learning your team and really concentrating on watching them. Just play with it when you're with your team, with your family members, when you're with people. It can really help your relationships to learn how they want to receive information. You could just try it by saying how they want a cup of tea. You can try anything with a question to see how they react back to you. Just play with it. Play with language, play with body language, play with verbal language, but also play with your listening skills, because that's a really, really, it's the most important communication skill those human beings we have, is listening. And not many people are very good at it. So I would advise getting as good as you can at listening and really concentrate on that. We've got a good one here from Giovanni. Sometimes I'm too empathetic and tend to take on others' emotions a bit too much. I can definitely work on stepping back from getting too emotion orientated. That is very much a sympathetic approach, which is arm's length, but you can still take on their emotions and get really embroiled in those emotions. So to be a better empathetic character, to be able to step into their person's shoes, but not get embroiled in their emotions, and then be intelligent enough to then think, how can I help them? So you're not taking on their emotions. Energetically, our personalities can be very much, I'm one of them, that we do take on someone's emotions too much. And I've had to learn it over the years to not get embroiled in someone's emotions, to leave them to them. They're their emotions. You can't help them by becoming emotional with them. So just that stepping back, being empathetic towards them, but seeing how you can help them, not standing up to the top of the hole, getting in the hole and seeing how you can help them is what will help you not get so embroiled. I'm learning, that's me speaking from experience. Lynn, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I think one of my biggest lessons working on yachts was whatever anybody else is thinking about you is all their own stuff. So you have to get centered into you. So back to Caroline, don't ask them to do things when you're feeling frustrated. This is emotional intelligence. Ask yourself how you're feeling, or you will just recognize it. My heart is racing. I feel frustrated. This is not a good time to ask people to do things. This is a good time to go and have a cup of tea, get centered, think how you can approach people. You have to learn your own self-leadership skills and your own ways of leading other people. And the way to lead other people is to understand how they tick. So some people, as Julia said, will just need bullet point ways of doing things. Can you do this, and this, and then that? And they're happy with that. They got bored halfway through if you'd be going, whilst you're outside, I wonder if you wouldn't mind doing. No, they don't want to know that. Whereas somebody else might like that approach. So you need to get to know your team when you're leading them. So being too empathetic, don't take it as a negative. It's just your character. You are empathetic. It is wonderful to be empathetic. Don't dull that down in any way. Just learn how to manage it, Giovanni. And thank you for being back again. Seen you on all of our webinars, I think.
And Neil's saying emotional intelligence is an interesting topic for multicultural teams. Absolutely. It really is. If you think about the different cultures that you have to deal with, the different, that's huge body language, which you have to watch. It is so important to really look at and understand what makes people tick. We're all different. We're all unique. We all have things that float our boats and things that don't float our boats. So as a team, particularly in multicultural teams, to really understand what makes each other tick will really help that communication and connection grow. So that's where current dynamics comes in again, because we can understand where your natural energy is. But again, watching, observing, understanding their cultures and respecting them. We all have different things. And if you're all multicultural on a boat, you've all got to respect each other. And with that respect and understanding comes trust. And that goes across the board with everyone. Everyone has to understand each other, all our quirks, and accept them. Once we get those acceptance, as Lynn was saying, acceptance is hugely powerful for us all. Once you get the acceptance, you then get tolerance, and then we can tolerate each other, and then we get to the trust, and love comes in then. When you're working with people, if you can find a way to love someone, not in the normal love terms, but loving your team members and liking people. We need to like people and love people and have more love around us to help create those bonds. and help create these really cohesive teams. And then so everyone can be really powerful, really strong, playing into their strengths. Know what makes you tick, know what makes your team tick, let everyone play into their strengths, and be vulnerable to what you don't like doing and be honest about it. So the more vulnerability we have in there as well, the more you're going to find those cohesive, open teams that work well together.
Yeah, absolutely. This all comes from acceptance.
Yes, I've just got another one here. Caroline saying, I actually feel my captain is fear-driven.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, we need more empathetic leadership everywhere, because there is still a lot of old school leadership which doesn't show a lot of empathy. And it's interesting you say that it's very fear-driven, because I think in old school, the way people used to lead, that's how people led. They led with this sort of do it my way or the highway. Well, we don't have that. We're coming out of that now, and we need to really, as particularly with the younger generation, or you millennials out there who I think are absolutely marvellous and wonderful, share this. I feel that you need more mentoring. So we need more mentors out there to help young people grow, and that empathy will evolve. And there are lots and lots and lots of more empathetic leadership coming through, and more mentors. So the more you say that's what you need, the more it's going to filter, and the more awareness is going to come out there. So do feel open to speak. Don't be frightened to speak. I mean, Lynne, you've been working on boats for years. It's important, isn't it, to be open and honest, and feel that you can be vulnerable enough to speak your truth. And I think that's where a lot of problems come, when you can't speak to your HODs. But I think if you start to open up, you'll find that you being vulnerable escalates, so that, and an HOD can be vulnerable as well. We all need that vulnerability. That's where the best leadership comes in.
Yeah, I think, Caroline, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to exercise some empathy, because unless you've been privy to the captain's phone calls with the management company or the owner, you really don't know where his fear-driven behavior is coming from. He might be, I don't know who your owner is or your management company, but they might be saying, unless you keep to this budget, we're going to have to sell the boat. And then there will be no jobs for anybody. It could well be that. Obviously, the owner has given a certain budget to the management company, or even whoever is driving all of that money side of his business. He's obviously struggling, the owner, I'm saying, and the captain is just the middleman in this, and he is having to make cutbacks. Now, I've been a chief steward, so I'm on your page. I hate it. I would hate it, because I'm fortunate enough not to have worked on boats who've been worried about money. But my fear is where you start the season where guests are complaining that things are not working or improved. Absolutely. And guests have a right to say that, because they're paying, what, $250,000 a week to be on your boat? And so they would expect that things have improved, that things are working. It's a short-sighted viewpoint not to keep the interior, as far as I'm concerned, in the very best condition you can, because your business is going to rely on those people coming back, or them giving good reports back to the management companies or charter companies, so that they will recommend that boat to somebody else. You only need a couple of groups of guests to go back to their charter agents and say, well, lovely crew, wonderful cruising area, but the interior, it's so shabby, or we didn't have enough of this, that, or the other, or it's really, the towels should have been changed last year. Those things will stop the owner making more money. So you have to look at the bigger picture. Maybe you could go to your captain with a decent proposal, do some costing of what it might cost to bring things up to a better level, and find that kind of, do it in a business-like way, find that middle ground with him, and say what you think. Say what you think will happen if you don't do it. We're going to lose guests. We're not going to get repeat charters. The charter agents are going to find out. Do it in that kind of professional way and see if you can make some headway.
Yeah, the other thing that I was going to add here, but just looking at all the comments, is that we're all human beings. And I don't want to talk about this situation, because everyone's been talking about it far too much. But we are all experiencing the same thing. You know, globally, we're experiencing the same thing. And so captains are experiencing it as well. So it doesn't stop with just crew. Captains are experiencing exactly the same thing. They don't know what's going to happen for the season. Everybody across the board is experiencing exactly the same thing. And this uncertainty is there. So fear is always going to be there whilst there is uncertainty. And we still don't know quite what's happening, but we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. So there's a positivity now that's out there, which we've got to focus on. And so if we can focus on working on ourselves, working on our personal development, working on our empathetic skills, working on our listening skills, our communication skills, wherever you are in the world, whatever role you're doing, whether it's shorebound or you're on board, it's working on yourself so we can don't let ourselves go into that fear zone. We're in this learning zone or we're in the growth zone. Let's get ourselves more into that growth zone so that when we do come out of this, which we will, and the season starts, everybody is going to be firing on all cylinders and feeling that we've upskilled, we've become better versions of ourselves, we've learned something. This has been a positive experience, because there will be lots of positives to come out of it.
Definitely, definitely. And it's all about empowering yourself with knowledge. There is no reason why you can't buy a book or go online and find out cultural differences of people. Find out, you're going to have guests, owners, other crew members of many different cultures. How do the Russians differ from the Americans? Vastly, in many, many ways. Americans and English people, very different. American guests probably want to know all about you. Have you got a boyfriend on board or a girlfriend on board? Who is the owner? All of this sort of stuff. You won't get an aristocratic English person asking you that. It's not in the culture. Russians may well not be very friendly when you first meet them. And to somebody who doesn't expect that, they think immediately they've done something wrong. It's nothing to do with that. It's a cultural difference. So empower yourself with this knowledge and bring it to your teams. Empower everybody else around you. Upskilling is so important. This is a perfect time for you to upskill. Find out about how people tick. Take the courses that we offer. We show you how to manage people, how to get into emotional intelligence, psychological security. These are all important things if you want to become effective leaders. And this is how you want to come out of this situation. Now you're creating the people you want to be whilst you're in the situation, because those people are going to lead you to the people, i.e. you, who you will become at the other end of this lockdown. Who do you want to be? You want to step into this season, which will happen. Find out about which ports are starting to open up. Boats are arriving in Italy, for example. Their lockdown is not open until the 3rd of May, but you contact Port State Control with the right documentation and you can get in now. Go on these useful webinars. Find out the good stuff that's happening. Things are opening up slowly, but they're opening up. And we will almost certainly have a season. It'll be a late season. Maybe it'll go on till later. Maybe in October we're still doing a summer season. But as much as we can, the first thing owners want to do right now? Get on their boats. Get on their boats, of course they do. They've been in lockdown as well. So find the positives in all of this. Get emotionally intelligent, in other words.
Yes. And as I said, this is just a snapshot of the learning of emotional intelligence, because it is a big subject and it's something that you never stop learning. You will never stop learning. And if you think you've learned everything, then that's not a good place to be. Keep learning, keep adding to your toolbox, and those leadership toolboxes can be really getting bigger and bigger and bigger during this this situation that we're in. And Ono, are you there? Because I think somebody's asked a question.
Oh, there's a lot of questions going on, but you were such a wonderful conversation that I wouldn't want to interrupt. Givany is saying that she did a personality that was close friends and family, and she's going to do that with her crew, which is amazing.
Well done, Givany.
Yeah. Galina says, does emotional intelligence of a bilingual person different? So if someone speaks too fluently two languages, does that change your emotional intelligence?
Well, those things are cognitive skills. Learning, your language these are cognitive skills. They're not really emotional skills. You might have a better insight into those cultures. Whilst you've been learning those skills, maybe you've spent time in those countries even, I don't know. That will give you a different insight. Somebody said earlier that their emotional intelligence has expanded because they've traveled away from home, they've lived with different cultures. Of course, these are all things that are going to expand your emotional intelligence. The language thing, it's not directly related to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your feelings, What the wonderful thing about this is that since your thoughts create your emotions, which create your feelings, which drive your behavior, and we as humans can change our thoughts about things, we are incredibly powerful to design our own lives, our own ways of behavior. This is a wonderful tool that we have inherently as humans. You must tap into it. Most of us go along thinking, oh, we're just a victim of the circumstances. No, you're not. You're really not. You have the right to be happy even in these difficult times. Being happy, being optimistic, and being positive is not a bad thing to be in these times. This is going to help you get through it much more easily. This doesn't mean you don't care about other people. This doesn't mean you're not aware of the suffering. This means you are responsible for your own emotional health. It's a good thing to do.
And if you look around you and you observe people around you, look at the people that are, as I keep talking about, reactional. If they're reactional, they have less emotional intelligence. Because if you react quickly, they're reacting on past experiences or things that are within them. It's nothing to do with you. It's a really hard thing to get your head around. But if you have somebody really reacting in a strange way in front of you, say to yourself, press that pause button. This isn't about me. It's about them. It's something that's in them that's making them react the way. So if you react back, all you're doing is just creating a huge reaction. Press the pause button, go into the now moment and think, okay, what is this situation right now, right here that I'm dealing with? Let me press that pause button, breathe, and then I'm going to give a proactive response rather than a reactive response. That's when you start to notice that your emotional intelligence grows, because your communication and your relationships will grow because you haven't got this sparking, this reaction going on. You're becoming much more intelligent to waiting, stepping into the gap, pressing that pause button and going, okay, this is not about me. What is it that it's about? Deal with it specifically, what that's about. And then you'll find that the conflict and all of those things that you deal with will start to dissipate because you're dealing with specific things, not just things that have grown into a big thing. So really think about pressing that pause button when you're in a reactional state. It does help.
It does. And remember that your emotional intelligence is going to change as you go through your life, because you will have different life experiences. And so the way that you might have reacted last year to something is going to be very different from the way that you react now or next year. It's about tapping into your feelings, about knowing who you are. So Megan, are there EI tests? I'm perfectly sure there must be, but it's mostly about learning and recognizing these traits within yourself, but know what the traits are, know how to do that.
There are actually one of the ones that we often use just in when we do our insight calls. There is a free EI where you can just go in and see where you are. I mean, most people just on a general level will come out at a fairly good emotional intelligence. But really, you've got to look inside. You've got to think, how emotionally intelligent am I? Get the mirror, look at you and think, do I react? Do I overreact? What am I doing to create this situation? Be vulnerable with yourself. Think, what am I doing? If something happens, look at yourself, be vulnerable, be open and honest. Think, what am I doing that's helping create this situation? It always takes two. There's always something in there that will make two people react the way they do. And if you can become more intelligent to press that pause button and wait, think, okay, I'm not going to add to this situation. That's when your intelligence will start, your emotional intelligence will start to grow, and your empathetic leadership will start to grow as well.
Janice, that probably, I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, that probably answers your question. How do we help reaction-prone crew? You have to teach them emotional intelligence so that they know how they're feeling, why they're reacting. It's
Well, the first
as simple
step,
as that.
yeah, well, the first step would be to take the talent dynamics test.
Yeah.
And highly recommend you listen to that webinar and look at the test and go back to the boat and start talking about it. Because then if everybody does the test, they'll all then start from a place of understanding everyone's energy. Number one, understanding how to communicate with people. Emotional intelligence then is born out of that, because the communication comes in, and then you can start to communicate better. Then you can feel more trust to be vulnerable with each other. And that's when it all builds, but it starts with a base layer. And once you start with that base layer, you can grow. But acceptance and awareness of the base layer is where it starts.
And you'd be surprised the ripple effect of that, and how much more your team will be engaged in what they're doing, because it will be a happier place for them to work. And many, many studies have been done on the relationship between happiness or positivity and productivity. Julia and I have been following people for many years, Sean Acord, Daniel Goleman, who have done massive studies on this. And they show that people who are positive, who are happy, who are fully engaged, perform significantly better than peers who are not fully engaged in their work, because they're not emotionally intelligent and they haven't tapped into their own feelings.
Ladies, and you thought it would be this would be a shorter webinar today. And then when we started before, she said like, well, this might not take as long as the other ones, because obviously we're just going to have a little dip in. But like, look at the time; we're almost through it, and it was great again. Are there any more questions? And first is the video.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Thank you, everybody, again. Thank you for your kind words. And tomorrow, no webinars, because it's a public holiday in Spain. So I'm going to enjoy, and France. So I'm going to enjoy my balcony. I'll be out walking on Saturday. Monday, we're back. Two great webinars doing mixology in the morning. So everybody that's doing that, we're going to send you an email tomorrow with a whole list. And then we're doing financial welfare in the afternoon. I think that's an important topic as well in these times. Thank you, ladies. You're impressive. Well, thank you so much. I'm not a lady. I think I don't refer to me. I think referring to the two of you, and very much deserved. Thank you, everybody.